There are a few people here. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Hello, hello. We're going to be starting in just a second. I've got Lucy on this meeting with me, who's working with us at Marketing Worldwide, as I think everybody now knows. And she is going to be taking any questions, and we'll deal with that at the end of the presentation. And she has asked that please put any questions into the Q&A and not into the chat box, because that makes things a little easier. So that would be great. So please put any questions into the Q&A box. And of course, just to let you know that this, of course, is going to be recorded. So those who can't join us, we can send the recording to it. So I think we'll just start straight away. So welcome, everybody. Now, this is just a little webinar. We thought we'd do it. It's a short journey through my recent trip. I'm just back from Kenya, and we put together a Gamewatchers and a Porini Safari Camps trip to Kenya. So let's just, so for those, I know most of you, or most people who have signed up, know Kenya pretty well, but for those who might join later or have the recording, it's just a few facts that I thought were quite interesting. So 8% of Kenya's land area is protected for wildlife, with 54 national parks and reserves, which is just, you know, fantastic. But I think an important fact for everybody to keep at the back of their minds is that 60 to 65% of the wildlife are outside these parks, 12% of which are in the conservancies, which of course is what Gamewatchers and Porini are so renowned for. It really is. I hadn't been to Kenya for quite a while, and it just never fails to deliver and surprise, and you know, that's just fantastic. It really was amazing game viewing, even though we were in the low season, and yeah, it was pretty warm. They've had some horrific rains, as you know, but we had some good weather and saw lots of game. So that was fantastic. So just to look at this map, just to remind you all where the Porini camps are. Of course, we've got our stronghold in the Mara here on 4 conservancies here. The first one, the first conservancy that we ever set up was the one in Selenke, just outside Amboseli. And then, of course, we've got Nairobi Tented Camp, which has now moved within Nairobi, which I'll tell you about. And of course, up here, Porini Rhino up in Ol Pejeta, and then over here in Meru National Park as well, just outside the park. So just to give you an insight of why Porini and you know, the conservation program is so special and so worth putting forward, really, for the right guests, is that we've been spearheading the community-based wildlife for over 25 years in Kenya. That's when we set up in Selenke. And we do run a wide range of conservation activities and award-winning projects throughout. And I'll give you a little bit of information as we go along. And I think it's very important, when there's a lot of greenwashing going on, that we don't just say that we support the communities, but we explain to you how we do that, and how much and how it gets distributed. So I've just had the figures in from last year. So just for 2025 alone, we have managed to give $2.6 million to the communities. You know, with the communities, you know, their greatest asset is the land and is the wildlife, you know, they're on. So what, we don't own any of the land. We make sure that we rent it off the Maasai, and for them to then take their cattle and their sheep and graze it sort of next door, the land itself managed to regenerate completely. The animals come. When the animals come, the predators come. It's such low density of vehicles and tourism in these conservancies. It just makes the most fantastic game viewing. And when we distribute, so this is just March figures, and there's full transparency of how the cash is distributed throughout the, you know, the families and and villages, and you can see that at any point and wherever the money has been distributed. So I think that's important that you know that. But in terms of guest experience, with the conservancies that we have, each guest tent at Porini, both at the camps and the cottages, means that each guest has up to 700 acres of untouched wilderness just for them. So the impact is very, very low, in terms of the land and the wildlife. But of course, in terms of the guest experience and for the Maasai, the impact is absolutely huge. None of our camps are bigger than 10 tents, so they vary between 6 and 10 tents, and of course we can accommodate up to 20 guests, having a truly immersive experience. So in a nutshell, this is the difference between the experience. We've got these wonderful open vehicles. They all have charging points, and they have special armrests for the serious photographers. And you can go off-roading, and you can get up, really up close and personal to wildlife. Now, this is a bit of an old photograph, not that it matters, but this would be very much high season in the Mara, because it's a reserve. There are different rules that happen there, and it can do, not always, of course, but it can have quite an impact on the game, particularly for the cats, where the guides want to get all their guests really, really close for the best experience, but that's not necessarily the best experience for the wildlife that are there. So let's start with Nairobi Tented Camp. I have to say, I've never really stopped in Nairobi, and this really blew me away. We have relocated into an area of Karen, and you go past the offices and then just into this oasis of calm. Beautiful, beautiful gardens. It's the same camp that we had before. It's a tented camp, and I think it really immerses guests into a safari style, where there's an open fire pit, and it just feels worlds away from the city. It's a real gentle introduction to Kenya's outdoors, without the need of a long transfer from either airport, really, or any sort of rigid schedules. And you can walk to quite a few of the attractions. So the camp itself, this is the dining area here, and you can just look out. And then of course the tents proper fully, the tents are just as you would on any safari tent, en suite. Now it has all grown up. This is a bit of an older picture, and a lot of the vegetation has grown up around this, but it was just great. It was great staying there. You've got all the water, sort of on tap. There's no bucket showers here, but just, a wonderful place to have your, that sort of feel like you're on safari straight away. And there was just so much to do. We were only there for one night, and we did a couple of these. We tried out the Serenity Spa, which you could walk to. You could also walk to the hub, and then we went and had a look at Ocean Soul, which is a bit like a Flippy Floppy project, where they collect old flip-flops from the beach or for streams or wherever, and they get recycled and pieced together, and then they can make animals and other things from it. And they actually got commissioned to make a full-sized car, which of course was sent to America. But it was amazing, and you could tour around, and there was no charge for that. Of course, there's the Daphne Sheldrake Elephant Orphanage, the Giraffe Centre, and being in Nairobi National Park itself, which has plentiful rhino and lion, eland, loads of birds, just lots to do. Map Bronze we went to as well. And I just think that, quite often Nairobi gets overlooked, but we had in our group, there was a girl, a lady who joined us from Ireland, and of course she had to go via London and then via Ireland, and I know a lot of you have guests that come from the States, and I think to have 1 or even 2 nights in Nairobi, because being on safari is so busy and so tiring, to actually just sort of immerse yourself and do this. And it was just great. So I just think that, could be an option for those traveling from further afield. So we started off, we flew north, we started off in Rhino River Camp. What a beautiful setting. You just sort of walked into camp, it was slightly high up, and looked down onto this beautiful setting of the swimming pool, and there's a river that's running here. And so just the sound of the river and the water was very soothing. It's a great camp. It's not inside the national park. It's just adjacent. So we just went in to the national park. Was not far at all to drive to get in. And all the most of the tents, I should say, there are 7 tents in total, 5 of which face over towards the river. And 2 of them are family. This is one of the family tents. So if you were to take off this extra room, that would be very similar to a standard tent. And then 2 slightly back in the forest or the woodland, whatever you like to call it, en suite. Beautifully done. It's the only Porini camp with a pool, and just in the most beautiful setting. And there is a lady, a spa lady, who can come to the room and treat any guests for any spa treatments they might like. And these I just took with my iPhone. This was when we were in the park. Now, Meru, I think, is a really strong selling point. They've got black and white rhino there. They've got both there. They've got excellent birding and a lot of species that can only be found in Meru. The landscape, I would say, is really quite diverse. It ranges from sort of quite dense bush to much sort of wider open areas, and there's just quite a lot of game all around. You have to look for it a little harder than other national parks, I would say, but when we were there, we saw multiple rhino, large herds of buffalo, reticulated giraffe, a lot of giraffe actually, and a lot of plains game, and that was all within one single afternoon. So definitely worth a visit. I would say that if you were choosing different locations to go, I would say Meru. You can't do them all, well, unless their budget is huge. You can't do them all, so I would probably say that Meru would be for a more seasoned safari goer if you were really trying to look for rhino, as opposed to Nairobi National Park or Ol Pejeta. But it was stunningly beautiful. It was my first visit up to Meru, and I loved it. I thought it was just, I thought it was really great. Now, we did stay at other, it was a Gamewatchers fam trip. We did stay at other third-party properties as well. This was a picture I took from Elsa's copy because it was so beautiful, just overlooking the whole of Meru. But for those of you who do use us for Gamewatchers, if you want a little further information on that and where we stayed, then do put a note into Lucy and she'll make a note of that and we'll come back to you. But just to sort of let you know that. And then we flew down to Ol Pejeta, to Porini Rhino Camp. And I think, one of the things which I'm sure most of you know, but just also the flights aren't always direct. It depends on the other clients that are in the aircraft, where they're going, where we drop them off, who gets dropped off first. So, I think when people book, they need to be a little aware of that, because we met somebody who was most put out that he didn't fly directly because he hadn't been told. But here we are in Ol Pejeta, and that's pretty huge as well. It's 90,000 acres, and it's primarily a rhino sanctuary. So yes, again, we were so lucky. We saw plenty of white rhino. They actually created a bit of a problem in the evening because they were using the road, and that's where we were trying to get back to camp, and they just wouldn't move off it. So it was a real roadblock, 5 big bottoms all going down the road. And we saw black rhino as well. There was a mummy there with her baby. That was pretty special. But of course, plentiful game. And I think Ol Pejeta really comes up trumps. The game that you see is fantastic and plentiful. Again, up in this part of Kenya, you'll see reticulated giraffe and Grevy's zebra, which which you can't see as sort of elsewhere. You can't see that in the Mara or down at Amboseli. And I think, you know, Porini Rhino Camp is a really strong and authentic option for staying in Ol Pejeta. We're right on the sort of west side of Ol Pejeta, and it's the eastern side that can get quite busy. There's a lot more accommodation, and this was just us coming into camp in front of the waterhole here, and just, you know, sort of very similar. All the Porini camps, or most of them, have this double and a single, so guests can use it, and, you know, either as a twin, or if they want to have it as a double. And it's ensuite, you know, with a bucket shower. Now, this is not going to be, you know, for everybody. So I do think you need to make sure that the right client is put into you know, into Porini camps, but they are so authentic, absolutely fantastic. The staff are amazing, the food is fantastic, but you know, and I think for those looking for the most authentic safari experience, this really ticks all the boxes. And that's a little snappy snap I took of us being in the hide. We had a brilliant elephant encounters. They were so close, and you can just see how close you can, if you're, you know, on a big camera or just on your phone, you can really get some great shots. And then this was us crossing over Ol Pejeta to get to another camp, and really unusually the black rhino were just right out in the open. They're usually very shy. They stick to the, you know, to the bushes and shrubs, which is their natural you know, food, because that curved lip will get around the foliage and pluck it off, and that's really what they mainly eat. It's usually the white rhino that you see out in the open because they're more grazers. But they were there for ages, and we were there for ages, and we were off the main road, and we got quite close, and it was just fantastic to see. It was an absolute privilege. So yeah, so some really great encounters there. And then, as you can see, with our guide all wrapped up to the nines, it was a bit chilly in the mornings, but the sun was out, and that was lovely. And that was us. We'd climbed up to the, driven up to the top of a kopje, and we were just looking right out across the conservancy. It was just, you know, it was absolutely fantastic. And we had breakfast up there. And these, of course, are all things that you can do you know, when you're out on the land and there are no vehicles around. And I know we were there in low season, but, you know, we really didn't see any vehicles, and we had all of this space to ourselves, you know, ourselves. It was amazing. Lots and lots of giraffe. That's just one of my snappy snaps. And then we flew on down to the Mara. So I wanted to put this map in just so that you can see the difference for those of you who just may not remember. So this is the reserve itself here. And these are all the camps that are inside the reserve, and of course plenty of camps that are outside. And we also stayed in one of these that were outside, which I'll get to in a minute. But these are the conservancies where we have camps, or where at Naibosha where we don't have a camp, but we are very instrumental, have been in putting this conservancy together, and also where we do game drives on this conservancy, and more importantly, we still pay the conservancy fees even though we don't have a camp there. And the absolute privilege is that when you're on a conservancy, there are so few camps, and as I was explaining to you before, you are getting roughly around 700 acres per guest when you're staying here. You can go off-road, you can night drive, you can walk. And while we're talking about guiding and walking, one of the things which we noticed markedly, actually, because of course we stayed in a variety of camps, that all of our camps do have trackers as well, and especially if the bush is a little denser, it really makes a difference having extra, you know, pair of eyes to really spot the game. So we went to, and we stayed on Ol Pejeta. We went and had a quick look at Porini Mara, Porini Cheetah, and then we stayed in the new cottages, which was just fantastic. We didn't see anybody. It had been raining. We were so lucky with the weather. We had one bad afternoon, and the storm was right overhead. It made me literally jump out of my seat, and then we got very stuck, and then all the chaps came on a rescue committee. It was all very dramatic, and that's of course just an everyday life in Africa. And we crossed over on Nabosho as well, and we went and had a look at a couple of camps here, but we couldn't stay at Porini Lion because the flooding had been so bad. It flooded the camp. But I've included a couple of pictures of that just so you can see the difference between the two conservancies. And then we also went and had a look at Porini Giraffe, which this is our newest and latest conservancy. And the reason why there is sort of in dark green is to show the difference. So here, when we talk to the Maasai and about their sort of greatest asset that they have, they are loving it because they are getting rental from the land without doing any work. But the most important thing, and I think the thing that has such an impact on guests, is that the relationship we have with the communities is so strong. We employ everybody from the local communities, and all of our head chefs and our managers are usually, most of them are from the local communities, but they're all definitely Kenyan. And so the guests love it because, their English is so very good, and they are born storytellers, and they sit with guests around the fire telling stories and speaking about not only the wildlife and the habitat, but about their homes and their way of life and Kenyan politics and all sorts of things, and just having such a strong relationship with the community just helps with the guests find it fascinating and they love it, and that's why we have such a high repeat of guests that visit us. So in order for the conservancy fee to be paid over, the Maasai are not allowed to graze their cattle or their goats on this, in these areas, unless of course they can traverse to get from one area to another. But by doing this, the land regenerates, the animals come, and the predators, of course, come, and they all stay. And this is just to show you these red marks or the lion density. So look at where Porini Lion is, and on Ol Kinyei here, Naibosho, we really have high lion densities here. And in Ol Kinyei, one of the prides is about 50 strong. I mean, it's quite extraordinary. We saw quite a lot of them as well. And then cheetah, the density of cheetah as well, over here, and Ol Pejeta. And if you notice, there tend to be where the lion is not. But we did hear that because the lion is just getting stronger and stronger, that there are much less cheetah kind of in these areas now, because it's the lions are so strong. So a little quick look at Porini Mara camp. Again, it's a bit of a favorite with me. It's only got 6 tents, and there's a little river that runs past. You can hear the hippo, and I took this when we were there. It happened to be Mother's Day. I have 3 children, so that was a great photo to be able to send out. But it's just having that exclusive experience. It's being able to get off the road, being able to really photograph these majestic animals up close. We do the off-road driving, and it just all contributes, and with the community and everything else, it just contributes to a sort of more intimate safari. We didn't stay at Porini Cheetah, but that again is on Ol Kinyei. As I said before, we've only got the 3 properties that's there. Nobody else is on Ol Kinyei at all, so it's very exclusive. And again, a small camp of 6 tents, and being able to give the exclusive experience to guests. I took these just to say that it's not all about the big cats, of course, and we had some really great experiences, and just looking at different birds and fish eagles. And this was weaver. It was actually a colony of weavers going in and out of the nest that they'd just built, which was fascinating. And then we'd come round a corner, and then there was this beautiful cheetah, and we spent quite a bit of time with him in the morning, and then he was still there in the afternoon, and he got up and stretched and started to move off. But This is very typical of Ol Kinyei and just how beautiful it is. And actually, if you look around, and if this was a 360 picture, you would have just seen animals all around. So it's just, you know, the wildlife is just really, really rich. So it's you know, it is those sort of seeking a quieter, more immersive safari, and especially in high season can be preferable to the busy sections of the Mara. So a quick look at Porini, the safari cottages. We have 4 cottages, and they're all spread out, and they just have, the striking thing is the view is amazing, absolutely amazing. You can see for miles all over Ol Kinyei, and we very much enjoyed staying here. There are 4 cottages in total, and each cottage has 4 rooms, and that can either be taken as a whole. You can take as a whole cottage, as many rooms as you like, or it can be sold as individual rooms, so almost like a small camp. Yeah, as you can see out from here, I've got a better picture coming up, but just the views were absolutely amazing. And running water here, and not the bucket shower, so it's a more sort of upmarket version, and really, really comfortable. You come in through here, and there was a roaring fire, and dinner was served over here. The food was excellent. I mean, it really, really was good. And that was nice. So yes, this is a breakfast setup outside. We didn't have this time around because it was just too cold, but just beautiful, beautiful views. We heard lion roaring and hyena, and yeah, that was just great. We went and had a look at Porini Giraffe. I hadn't been there before, and this is on our new Rhino Conservancy. It was such a pretty conservancy. It really was. There were plains, there were streams, there were hills, and they have permanent water throughout the year. Now, this was our bush camp, which we had to have sort of more space when the migration is in town. So we had this camp and we moved it to Rapoi, and that's why it's a great value camp, as you can see from the price point, from $415 to $606 in high season. So it's a slightly smaller tent, but you know, all overlooking the river and the sound of the river. It was great. I loved it. And as you walk in and start walking down, this is just where we would serve breakfast or lunch, and then the river was beyond, and then you walk up here, and the guest areas are just over here. The staff was so friendly. There's Jimmy, for anybody who knows him, larger than life character. Everybody likes working with him. And I put this in just for a bit of fun. Honestly, look at the way this chameleon walks. And that was just quite poignant for me, because we spent quite a lot of time with the little things, and just being able to stop and spend time and not to be crowded, and that was just rather fun. So I put him in. Yes, and on Rapoi they have the largest number of eland, the population of eland on this conservancy. So it's got openness and it's got the hills. It's just sort of got everything. Now I popped this in, or we didn't manage to go and see it, but I love this picture because I think it really shows how you can do Ol Kinyei and Alara Motorogi conservancies. Ol Kinyei, where the cottages and Porini Mara and Cheetah are, have got a bit of everything. They've got open flay, they've got riverine, they've got forest, and they've got hills, whereas Porini Lion on Alara Motorogi is much more like the Mara. It's got these vast, huge open spaces. It's 30,000 acres, and it's just vast. And you've got a little river that runs past, and you can hear the hippo, what have you. But you can easily twin center these camps. And despite being up, you know, on stilts, yeah, we've had a bit of problem with the water, so that will be reopening very soon if it's not already. So the guest areas and just being in the, you know, in the tents and, you know, bucket showers, as we said before, being able, you know, a lot of lion here, being able to photograph them closely, being able to stop doing a surprise bush breakfast or a bush you know, or a bush lunch, do the walking and what have you. We welcome families. We have family tents at most of the camps. Some of the more wilder ones, we take children from 8, otherwise it's 5. And at Rhino River, which is just outside the park, we can take them from all ages. So it's just a good example of a family tent where you've got your double bed and your single, and then you've got an adjoining lounge, and then the same on the other side with the bathroom just here. So we do a young adventurers program, you know, really just to engage the children, and they love the Maasai because they love children and they love playing with them and talking to them and showing them the, you know, the little sword and the spears, and getting them to throw them, and, you know, the birds of the feathers or the scat, which of course kids love. So just wanted to mention that here. The special offers, we have Stay 4, Pay 3 running. We have a great Christmas and New Year offer for the end of the year. So 15% off when you stay 8 nights or more between Christmas and New Year, which I think is a steal. A 50% off for the bride and groom, and no single supplements during the lower season periods, which I think all then does help. But of course, any information that will be sent to you, so you're aware of that in the follow-up. And you know, that's it. That was me looking very happy because I just had the breakfast. But it's really what Porini do. They are so involved in so many of the projects here, the tree planting and, you know, the outreach programs, all sorts of things. And I think the combination of, you know, accessible logistics and diverse landscapes, and the wildlife and the different accommodation styles just makes Kenya really highly versatile and very sellable, really. We did go into, we stayed at a camp just outside the Mara. We did go into the Mara itself, and even though it was low season, you know, there were a lot of vehicles, I think about 14 or 15 crowded around a pride of lion. And it was really important that we saw it, because the Mara, as I say, I hadn't been for a while. It's so beautiful. It's so vast. You know, but it's just a different type of experience, and that's just what I kind of wanted to highlight, you know, today. So I think done well, Kenya, it doesn't just meet expectations, it exceeds them, and I think it leaves, you know, our guests and your clients just wanting to return. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. Lucy, have you been given any questions, or am I off the hook?
Yeah, I think now is the time. If anyone has any questions, just very quickly pop them in the Q&A. We don't have any at the minute. Yeah, just say that was very, very interesting, and I literally cannot wait to go later on in the year. I can't wait now. We did have a couple of questions just sort of prior to the webinar that people have sent through, so I'll quickly ask those to you, Sally. So if anyone wants to add any in the chat now, they can if they want to. Okay, or not, yeah, up to you. If you have clients that really want to see Rhino, where would you suggest they go? So obviously you have Meru or
I think if they've got time. Okay, I think if they've got time in Nairobi, I would definitely recommend a visit to Nairobi National Park. I think it's extraordinary, and it's full of wildlife, and there are plenty of rhino. So definitely that, if you can fit in a quick visit. And then, of course, Ol Pejeta and Meru. And I think if you're a first timer, then I would say Ol Pejeta, but just because there's so much game there and it's easy to spot, and I think it's all about the checklist when you're on your first time, because you're overly excited, and it's just sort of got these vast plains, and you can see plenty of game as well, you know, elephant and eland and Rensboch and all sorts. So definitely there. And I think, but I loved Meru. I thought it was fantastic, and I just think that, you know, as I said before, I think anybody who, you know, they still want that authentic safari. They've maybe done it once or twice before, but they're looking for something a bit wilder and not so much delivered on a plate. Then I think Meru it's just huge. And we saw, as I say, we had one afternoon when we were at Rhino River, and we saw plenty of rhino, plenty, or do both, of course, like we did.
Oh yeah. Oh, amazing. Okay. Thank you. One final question. What do you have a favorite wildlife encounter from your recent trip? A tough one.
Am I allowed to say all? I think for me, I've done safaris quite a lot. I've been to Kenya quite a lot, and every time I go back, I'm still astounded, and I still want to take photos of everything, and I still think everything's amazing. But I really loved my little chameleon video. We were off the track, and we were walking, and he was so hard to spot. And then he just started moving, and he was doing this kind of, and it was just wonderful to have the time and not to feel pressured to move on. There was nobody else around, and we were there for as long as we wanted. And then we just sort of drifted off. And then there was this dung beetle, and I've seen that plenty of times before, but the dung he had was enormous. And the beetle wasn't very big, and then he fell down the hill, and so he went with the dung, and they just fell down, and he had to start again. And it's quite sad, really, but I really enjoyed watching it. So I think the little stuff, for me, I always love seeing the cats. We did see a leopard. It was far away, in a tree and so well hidden. But I think the little things are just as exciting. And I'm not a birder, and I really enjoyed all the bird life we saw too. So yeah, that kind of covers everything, I suppose.
All of it, all of it.
Yeah.
And I guess because you have the tracker as well, you're more, you've got a better chance of seeing those smaller things.
Oh, absolutely,
as well,
without a shadow of a doubt, because he was noticing things before, before, not always before the guide, but the guide is also driving and telling us facts and doing, he's got a multiple job, so it makes his life much easier too. And they were just excellent, really, really good. Yeah.
So no other questions. No one's
okay. Oh, well, thanks, guys. That lets me off. Well, I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you so much. We'll send a kind of a recording just to follow up. And we're always around, where we are if you've got any questions.
Lovely. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Bye.